as the forest through which the army passed was set ablaze by the Moldavians, resulting in many...
Stefan the Great versus Muhammad. You guys are finally doing it. Lord have mercy. I'm finally doing it.
I was there, in the dead of winter 1475, one of tens of thousands in the army of Sultan Mehmed, marching through the snowbound lands of Moldavia. We were veterans, proud, disciplined, hardened by the siege of Constantinople, the campaigns in Serbia, Bosnia and Wallachia. We'd crushed kings, toppled walls. What could these forest dwellers possibly do to stop us? The land was cold, silent and cruel. Every step forward felt like it took us deeper into the unknown. Villages were empty, burned to ash, wells poisoned. Roads vanished beneath thick fog. And then, the horns sounded. At first we thought it was just another ambush. But this was no raid. Arrows came from all sides. Screams echoed through the trees. We couldn't see 5 steps ahead. Horses panicked. The ground beneath us was soaked not in rain but in blood and mud. Stefan of Moldavia. He wasn't just defending his land. He was hunting us, herding us like animals into the swamp, where thousands of us were cut down. The cold didn't kill us, the fear did. And I was one of the lucky few who escaped Vaslui and lived to tell the tale. With that harrowing account, we would like to welcome you to today's episode in our series on the history of the Ottoman Empire.
What a way to start a freaking episode.
Where we will examine one of the most significant military defeats the Ottomans faced at the Battle of Vaslui and Mehmed's war with Moldavia. Every week we release 3 new exclusive videos. After his significant victory over Uzun Hasan at Otluk Beli, Sultan Mehmed II began to march his grand army back to the capital. Following numerous years of military campaigning, the Sultan's eastern borders were finally secured against the Turkic powers of the Karamanids and Akkuyunlu. However, Mehmed's military triumphs were dampened when his beloved son, Shahzada Mustafa, fell ill and died the following year, shocking many in the government. The Ottoman prince had been the most promising of Mehmed's 3 sons, and had been groomed as a potential heir. Outraged by Mustafa's sudden death, the Sultan blamed the tragedy on Mahmud Pasha. The Grand Vizier was first detained and stripped of his titles before being executed, a move that highlighted Mehmed's increasing authoritarianism toward members of his own government. Mahmud's rival, Gedik Ahmed Pasha, may have also played a role in the Vizier's rapid downfall, as he was soon hailed as Grand Vizier in 1474. Mahmud Pasha, the Ottoman statesman who loyally and dutifully served the Sultan over 2 decades in various military expeditions in the Balkans and Anatolia, was buried in Constantinople. After Skanderbeg's death back in 1468, the Albanian revolt against the Ottomans had lost its central leader and driving force. The Albanian lord had successfully unified various nobles of his homeland and led a 25-year resistance that kept the Turks at bay through a combination of brilliant military tactics and forming alliances with Western European powers. Nevertheless, with Skanderbeg's death, the Albanian nobility lacked a unifying figure to lead its armies. Skanderbeg's son, John II Kastrioti, was too young and inexperienced to assume leadership, and none of the surviving noble families commanded the same respect or allegiance from the broader Albanian population. Nevertheless, local resistance efforts continued in the region, with limited Venetian backing from the Doge's strongholds in Shkodra, Durrës and Lezhë. While Sultan Mehmed spent much of 1474 in his imperial palace due to recurring gout, he dispatched an army to the west to address the ongoing Albanian revolt. After being unable to capture Durrës back in 1467, the Sultan tasked Hadim Suleiman Pasha with besieging Shkodra to cut off aid to Albania from the north, leading...
Bro, why didn't they do this before? Now that I think about it, why did they not do this shit before? Bruh! How many, like, Ottomans? I think the Albanians defeated, like, 100, like, well over 100,000 Ottomans in that, like, 25... Yeah. Bro. Yo. Skanderbeg, I ain't gonna lie to you. You gotta put You see, well, I don't know. Skanderbeg, he was good, but he had like home field advantage, right? So because he had home field advantage, um, it's, I don't know. Was it because of that made him good, or was it like Alexander the Great type of good, where this man was just way from home? Even though I did point out that Alexander had the phalanx, they weren't. You still had to use them properly, because you could easily outmaneuver phalanx units and just completely let roll them over if you knew what you were doing. So Alexander, he was ingenious as hell, right? So compared to that, because what I was gonna say like Skanderbeg is like up there with like these other top tier commanders like Khalid, Napoleon, Alexander, Caesar. I still don't like Caesar much, to be honest. I'm not saying that he's bad. He's a good commander, but compared to what I've seen, hell, honestly, Skanderbeg, I think Skanderbeg had more feats than Caesar, low-key. That might be a crazy take to some of you, but just thinking about it and what I've seen, I think Skanderbeg had more brains than Caesar. Just my opinion. But I don't know, though, because he was like fighting. But I know Skanderbeg had previous experience in the Ottoman army, right? So he was already, because if I remember correctly, when we were first introduced to Skanderbeg, they pointed out that he was like a pretty good commander when he was serving in the Ottoman army. Although I think it's also because of the fact that he was previously in the Ottoman army is kind of what gave him an edge against the Ottomans too. So you have to ask yourself, like, okay, against someone who isn't a part of the Ottoman army, could he still do that, right? That's the golden question per se. I don't know. What do you guys think? I want to hear you guys' opinions in the comments. What do you guys think?
A provisional army of over 20,000, the Romanian Bela Bey marched across the Balkans in the spring and laid siege to the Venetian stronghold by mid-May. Although its walls crumbled under heavy Ottoman artillery fire, the local garrison managed to hold out for several months. In the final assault in August alone, the Turkish forces suffered 3,000 casualties. As his losses mounted and news of a Christian fleet approaching to relieve the siege arrived, the Ottoman Pasha withdrew his army from Shkodra to the great jubilation of the Venetians. However, instead of returning to the imperial capital, Suleiman received new orders from Mehmed II to muster a fresh army and march towards the Danube, as a new threat arose in the distant lands of Moldavia. Like its sister state of Wallachia, the Principality of Moldavia was founded in the mid-14th century amid the decline of Mongol dominance in Eastern Europe and the weakening of the Kingdom of Hungary's eastern frontier. Around 1345, Dragos of Maramuresh, a Vlach noble, was sent by the Hungarian crown to establish a border march against Tatar incursions in the east. He succeeded in creating a realm, marking the beginning of Moldavia as a political entity.
Oh, wow.
Soon after Dragos's death, his successors were expelled by Bogdan the...
Yo, let's talk about Moldova. Moldova is so mysterious to me, honestly. Like, I know what the country is, but Moldova, like modern day, like nobody really talks about Moldova at all. Even with the whole like Transnistria conflict, nobody talks about Moldova at all. You know what I find hilarious about Moldova? When Russia was now sending forces into Ukraine in 2022, and Lukashenko when yeah, when Russia had entered in Ukraine and Lukashenko was showing like the map of where Russian forces were supposed to go, allegedly, and allegedly there was an arrow pointing at Moldova, allegedly indicating that after they reached Transnistria, that allegedly they would enter into Moldova, allegedly. Okay, I'm just saying allegedly. And right after that, like Moldova immediately applied for EU membership. Oh God, that was hilarious. But what was I gonna? But really and truly, though, it's interesting how Moldova has not really unified with Romania. Honestly, I know it's because of the whole Transnistria conflict, but honestly, if I was Moldova, I would kind of just let Transnistria go, to be honest, and just kind of rejoin Romania, honestly. Um, I really don't understand why Moldova is like hell bent on holding Transnistria. I don't really see any like importance to it at all, or any cultural significance to it. I don't really know. I never really understood why Moldova was so like hell bent on trying to keep Transnistria. I was kind of, I'm just like, okay, just let the people go. Honestly. But aside from that, honestly, yeah, Moldova's a pretty mysterious place.
First, a rival voivode who had rebelled against Hungarian authority and asserted Moldavian independence around 1359. Under him and his successors, Moldavia evolved into a principality with its own institutions, military and royal dynasty. The realm's territory stretched between the Carpathians and the Dniester River, encompassing key trade routes to the Black Sea. Nevertheless, by the late 14th century, Moldavia was forced to contend with the influences of Hungary, Poland and the rising Ottomans, all of whom coveted its vital Black Sea port towns of Akerman and Kilia. Much like Wallachia, the principality served as a crucial buffer state for all three during the 15th century.
Introducing.
By 1451, Bogdan II of Moldavia was murdered and usurped by his brother Peter III, who became an official vassal of Poland while also paying an annual tribute to the Ottomans. However, Bogdan's son Stephen received support from the Hungarian armies of John Hunyadi. Along with his cousin Vlad III Dracula, he reclaimed the throne from his relative by 1457. The new ruler continued to pay tribute to the Ottomans and used the
Hunyadi, bro. He probably could have saved Constantinople. He probably could have. Bruh. The amount of people who got pissed with me because I said it's kind of sad that the Ottomans almost lost Constantinople. Bruh, I will live by that statement.
To reform his realm. He expanded and professionalized the army, creating a standing force of mercenaries and enhancing the mobilization of peasant levies. The power of the Vlach nobility was also curtailed, as new judicial laws and tax codes were enacted to promote central control from the capital of Suceava. In 1462, the opportunistic Stefan III supported Ottoman armies during their war against Wallachia to recapture Kilia. This goal was achieved by 1465, allowing Stefan to gain control over the strategic Danube Delta. Observing that Moldavia was beginning to re-establish itself as a regional player under their ambitious ruler, the King of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, invaded the country in 1467. There, the Hungarian monarch faced a humiliating defeat at the Battle of Baia, losing up to 10,000 men and sustaining injuries himself. The victorious Stefan followed up on his significant triumph by raiding Transylvania and thwarting a Golden Horde invasion at Lipnitz over the next 4 years. It was also during this period that his former exiled rival, Peter III, attempted to seize the Moldavian throne alongside the forces of Radu III of Wallachia. Ultimately, he was unsuccessful in his attempts. By the early 1470s, the relationship between Mehmed II and Stefan had begun to deteriorate, as the Sultan insisted that Kilia be returned to Wallachian control. While Ottoman armies were engaged in Anatolia against Uzun Hasan, Stefan III terminated his tributary status with the Sublime Porte and invaded Wallachia in the fall of 1473. The strongly pro-Ottoman Radu III was defeated in battle and replaced by his Daneshti relative Basarab III. However, by the end of the year, Radu reclaimed his throne with the support of Mihalolu Ali Bey and 17,000 Akinji raiders who plundered the local countryside as the new year approached. Yet the reign of the Impaler's brother was not destined to last long, as by the spring of 1474, Basarab regained power once again with Moldavian assistance. With Wallachian politics once again in turmoil and the loyal Radu III deposed, Mehmed sent Stefan an ultimatum. The Moldavian king would either pay his annual tribute, pay homage to the Sultan in Constantinople, and cede Kilia to the empire immediately, or face the wrath of the Ottoman armies. By the summer of 1474, the Sultan received his response from the Moldavian voivode, a staggering refusal of all conditions. Shortly thereafter, official war was declared, and orders were sent to Hadim Suleiman Pasha to march on Moldavia. The Rumelian Beyler Bey spent the rest of the year gathering reinforcements for his war-weary army in Sofia. Although it was long past the campaigning season, Suleiman managed to assemble around 30 to 40,000 troops for the Moldavian War. This provincial force consisted of Azips, Janissaries, Akinjis, Tamali Sipahi heavy cavalry, and a number of Bulgarian engineers, tasked with clearing out roads and bridges of the local region.
Ooh, Bulgarian!
With Turkish troops gathering so close to his border.
We see Bulgarians in action. Bro, I was talking to Effie, one of our lovely channel members. Thank you, Mr. Effie, for being a channel member. But I was talking to Effie on Discord. Like I said, when you're a channel member, you get access to the Discord server. Only for channel members, you get better connection with me. But when I was talking to Effie, I told him, I know you're watching this, Mr. Effie. I said that Bulgarians still do look like Turks. And he said, not really. But they do. Well, some of them do. I've seen Bulgarians who look extremely Turkish as hell. Like the eyes look Asian as hell. Like really, 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 really Turkish. I think I've just seen like Bulgarians who are just very Slavic looking. Extremely Slavic looking. So I do know the region is mixed, but I'm telling you, bro, like Bulgarians still very, very, like a lot of them still look very, very Turkic though. Although I've seen some extremely Slavic, just purely looking Slavic Bulgarians.
Basarab III reverted his realm's status to that of an Ottoman vassal, and also pledged a contingent of Wallachian cavalry for Suleiman's war effort. As a result, the pathway into Moldavia was opened to the Ottomans. Meanwhile, Stefan was able to gather around 20,000 troops for the upcoming war. Half of his army consisted of peasant conscripts, mobilized from the countryside, and the regular Moldavian army, which included professional infantry, light and heavy boyar cavalry, and 20 cannons. The other half of the army consisted of foreign auxiliaries and mercenaries from neighboring Christian kingdoms, including 5,000 CK infantry, 2,000 Polish cavalry, 1,800 Hungarian infantry, cavalry and handgunners, and lastly 1,000 Wallachian volunteers.
That's diverse.
By November 1474, Suleiman began crossing the frozen Danube in 2 columns from Vidin and Nicopolis. Regardless, the weather had already turned for the worse, slowing the Ottoman host's march north. Recognizing that his men were cold and exhausted, Suleiman rested his troops for over 2 weeks near Bucharest, where he received reinforcements from Basarab's promised contingent of 10,000 Wallachians. By December, the Turkish forces entered Moldavia, but Stefan was prepared and utilized scorched earth tactics to confront the invaders. Hundreds of villages were burned, their wells poisoned, and their local inhabitants relocated to create supply issues for the far more numerous Ottoman army. This was a war of attrition, and Stefan was accustomed to battling superior opponents, continually harassing the Ottomans with his hit-and-run tactics, reminiscent of those employed by his cousin Vlad the Impaler.
Whoa, man!
After nearly a month of marching through the abandoned countryside in freezing conditions, Turkish scouts sighted a few dozen intact villages in a valley where the Barlad River flows south of the town of Vaslui on the 10th of January 1475. With heavy fog, rain and frigid temperatures plaguing his men, Suleiman decided to rest his army in the supply-rich region before continuing his march northward to the Moldavian capital. However, as the Ottoman troops began to cross the river over the only bridge in the area, Moldavian battle drums were heard in the north. Convinced that Stefan's entire army was ahead, Suleiman hastily advanced his troops through the dense fog and ordered the army to assemble on the western side of the river. As the drum roll
got rage baited.
Continued, more Ottoman soldiers crossed the river and moved through the marshes to the north, forming a makeshift battle formation.
Yo, he got rage baited, bruh.
This brought the exhausted and now panicked Turkish host into a narrow valley, from which showers of arrows rained upon them.
Fire arrows too! Oh man.
Situated at the end of the marshland was the Moldavian army, fortified behind earthworks and trenches. Front lines finally came into contact with Stefan's regular army and troops from Poland, Hungary and Transylvania. A bloody hand-to-hand melee ensued over the highly fortified positions on the marshland. Hearing the news of the struggle, Suleiman Pasha, stationed at the rear of the army and unable to assess the situation on the front lines, ordered a general advance and began rushing men across the small wooden bridge.
Oh shit.
Unbeknownst to him, he had just led his army into a trap. As reinforcements crossed the river, Moldavian cannon fire and barrages from the handgunners had begun to bombard the Turkish host from the opposite side of the river. The now panicked Suleiman began rushing his heavy cavalry across the wooden bridge, and this, combined with cannon fire, ultimately caused the unsturdy bridge to collapse.
I knew that bruh. I knew that was gonna happen. Like, I wasn't gonna say nothing yet, but I was like, oh, the bridge.
While Turkish reinforcements now attempted to cross the freezing cold river, the Wallachian contingent refused to do so, leading to significant tensions within the Ottoman army mid-battle. A fierce war of words caused Basarab to withdraw his support for Suleiman, thereby initiating his withdrawal from the battle. Meanwhile, back on the front lines, the Ottoman Sipahis were successful in pushing the left wing of the Sakayas and the Moldavian professionals.
Yo! They're clutching up! They're clutching up!
However, this lured the army further into the grasp of Stefan. Suddenly, the Moldavian war drums were heard.
Never mind!
To the left of the Ottoman line. Completely exposed, Ottoman officers panicked. Having never been made fully aware of the tactical situation, Suleiman tried to form a secondary line to defend against the threat on his left side. Nevertheless, the main Moldavian
Wait, so there wasn't any
attack was planned against the Ottoman right flank,
Oh.
and the heavy boyar cavalry of Stefan, which had been hidden behind a forested hill until then, charged into the rear and flank of the Ottoman host. Despite still outnumbering their opponents, the now exhausted Turkish host thought that they were surrounded from three sides and began routing en masse. The
That was a brilliant plan.
battle had now turned into a massacre, in which individual Ottoman units fled the battlefield in all directions. During
Yo.
the three-day Great Retreat, the remains of Suleiman's host were run down by Moldavian cavalry, resulting in many Ottoman officers being taken captive and then executed.
Shit.
The Battle of Vaslui would become one of the most significant defeats in Ottoman history. The Sublime Porte suffered up to 20,000 casualties during the battle, compared to Stefan's 5,000.
Bruh, this is like some Skanderbeg tactics right
Like
here, bruh.
Skanderbeg before him, the Moldavian ruler was anointed by the Pope with the title of
Speaking of the devil.
Christa for his great victory over the Turks. However, such a victory was to be celebrated only briefly, as in the following months after the battle, Stefan would conclude an alliance with Hungary, knowing that Mehmed's wrath would soon be at the gates of his realm.
Yeah.
Since the Ottoman conquest of Serbia and Bosnia, the Turkish martial lords of the Balkans gradually intensified their raids deep into Europe. In 1474, Mihalolu Ali Bey had launched a significant raid into Hungary. He reached as far as Oradea, enslaving and looting as he progressed through the country. Later that year, Turkish raiders from Bosnia also invaded Croatia, extending as far as Varaždin, Metlika and Putui. By the time of the disaster at Vaslui, Ottoman raiders had penetrated into the border regions of Carniola and Carinthia, causing significant panic in the royal courts of both Hungary and Austria. Due to these devastating incursions into his realm, Matthias Corvinus pledged support for Stephen's war effort against Mehmed. Pausing his campaign in Bohemia, the Hungarian king gathered an army of 10,000 and marched on the recently constructed Ottoman fortress of Shabatz in the fall of 1475. By the start of the new year, the fortress was besieged with the assistance of the titular despot of Serbia, Vuk Gregorović, the grandson of Juraj Branković. After 30 days, Shabatz fell to the invaders, thus further securing the hinterland surrounding Belgrade from additional Ottoman incursions across the Danube. In the weeks following the siege, Hungarian raids into Turkish-controlled Bosnia and Serbia commenced. This included the looting of many towns by none other than a newly released Vlad Dracula. As he had done over a decade ago, the former Wallachian voivode impaled and massacred soldiers and civilians alike during yet another campaign of terror.
Oh my gosh! First thing he does as soon as he gets out is start impaling people.
In retaliation for the fall of Shabatz, the Ottoman marcher lords of Serbia resumed their destructive raids into Hungary throughout the summer of 1476, overrunning the Banat of Temesvar.
That's some funny shit,
However,
man.
the force was to be defeated at the town of Bela Crkva during their journey back to friendly territory. Further raids into Croatia and Slovenia were also initiated, with the sacking of towns such as Vipada, Postojna and Ljubljana. By the end of the year, Ottoman raids had extended.
That's like the first time I see the Ottomans like going this deep since I have reacted to the series. Wow, that's something.
As far as Tavisio, Arnoldstein and Villach, as peasant revolts erupted in the broader region. The situation was so dire that King Matthias's bride, Princess Beatrice of Naples, had to navigate her way into her future husband's plundered kingdom through charred villages and fields of corpses, while desperately trying to avoid Turkish raiders.
Imagine being...
By the spring of 1476, Sultan Mehmed had recovered from his bout of gout and planned to personally march on Moldavia to take revenge for the Battle of Vaslui. Like Germanicus avenging the fallen Roman legions at the Teutoburg forest,
Guys, if you haven't watched that series of mine, go and watch it. That series is insane, bruh.
Ottoman Sultan aimed to restore the honor of his armies in the upcoming war. Gathering a force of 40,000 in Sofia, the Sultan marched along the Black Sea coast and reached the Danube in early summer. While it took the army over 3 days to cross the Great River, Mehmed's Tatar allies from Crimea also invaded Moldavia from the east. Nevertheless,
it's hilarious whenever I hear people say that Tatars are native to Crimea. Do y'all realize that Tatars literally migrated all the way from Central Asia to Crimea? Tatars are a product of Mongol expansion, which, oh my god. So Tatars are European? Because Crimea is in Europe. If the Crimea Tatars are freaking like native to Crimea, then they're European. No, of course not, nigga. I hear people say that all the time when talking about the whole Crimea issue. Yeah, but the Crimean Tartars, bro. The Crimean Tartars, man. The Crimean Tartars. Not even native. Also, I made the valid point of the fact that if I really want to get technical to see like who Crimea actually belongs to, even though Crimea has swapped hands, I would still say Crimea is more so like just overall, just like Rus. Just like, yeah. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at Indo-European migrations, where did Indo-Europeans migrate to? Well, they spawned in on what's now the border of Russia and Ukraine, in around, roughly speaking, Donbass area. They roughly spawned in. That's where we start seeing like them being like mapped So, obviously some of them went and deeper into Europe, yeah. But some of them stayed. And the people who stayed would obviously, have their descendants, and their descendants would be the Slavic tribes, of course. I'm just giving a simplified explanation. They'll be like the Slavic tribes that inhabited the area of what would become Rus. And yeah, so like in layman's terms, this is still like Crimea is still more so like Russian. And I'm not speaking like the modern. Well, I'm looking at, you could look at it two ways. You could say like it's modern day like Russian. Like, yeah, you could say that. But if we're talking like nationality wise, Crimea has swapped hands so many times, dude. It's not even a joke. Like even the Tatars who aren't even indigenous to Crimea, right? They took over Crimea, but even before them, there were people who were there. But like, who originally went in this area first? Well, Indo-Europeans. Some of them would stick around. So, yeah, nationality-wise, like, Crimea is that's just, you can't really say who Crimea really belongs to. Really and truly. That's just my opinion on that. But if you want to say it's Russian, okay. But I would go on the side of it's Russian because it's just more, Russia still exists, and has had a much more firmer grip in much more recent history over Crimea. So it's more so like Russian now, to be honest. But yeah, that's just my opinion on that. But like aside from nationality, because nationalities are a modern concept, Crimea is still like more so like Rus. It belongs to Rus people. So, and well, some Rus people would eventually go and make Russia, and the other Rus people, even though they're the same people, would go and make Ukraine. Different nationalities, same people. So yeah. Overall, Crimea. Who's indigenous to Crimea? Rus people. There you go. Tatars, not even indigenous to Europe, not indigenous to Crimea. So,
they were routed.
I don't know why people freaking keep on saying, "Oh, but the Crimea Tatars, man, they're the original." Like, no, they're not. No, they're not. Golly,
by Stefan's forces,
freaking Crimean Tartars are European, nigga. Oh my god, bro! Like that's funny, bro. Like imagine a freaking person from freaking Africa goes all the way to like some part of freaking Europe and then says like, we're the indigenous part. This land is our land. Yeah, sounds stupid. Okay, like everybody would be crying. Ma, black people. Ma. I would say the N-word, but I don't want this to get demonetized. But people would be saying, Ma, black people. Ma, what are you niggas doing here? Ma, save Europe. And then go and put a whole bunch of swastikas and, black sun tat, all that. Right? Like, people will be so quick to say, oh, absolutely not, absolutely not. It's the same logic of Tartars in Crimea. Tartars are not European. They didn't originate from Europe, freaking hell. They came all the way from Central Asia, man. And they're a product mostly of Mongol expansion. That's how the Tartars even ended up in freaking Crimea. They literally colonized a place that was not even theirs. And then people want to cry about, Russia went and retake lands that were basically indigenous to Russians anyway.
Pushed out of the country entirely, thus thwarting Mehmed's plan to open a second front in the war. Like a year and a half earlier, the Moldavian voivode intended to employ scorched earth tactics and attrition warfare against a numerically superior foe. However, Mehmed did not repeat the mistakes of the previous expedition and marched cautiously through the region to ensure the safety of his supply lines. As the Ottoman army advanced towards Suceava through the White Valley, also known as Valea Alba, they finally encountered Stefan's host of 12,000. The Turkish vanguard, led by none other than Hadim Suleiman Pasha himself, was ambushed by the Moldavian ruler and suffered heavy losses. It was only with the arrival of the main Ottoman army that the Rumelian Beylerbey's contingent was saved, forcing Stefan to retreat to his camp. Due to the fact that he had not been reinforced with troops from Poland and Hungary, as had been the case the previous year, the voivode decided to go on the defensive and allow the invaders to attack his fortified line, which was located behind a forest. The next day, Mehmed ordered a general advance of his army, but this resulted in a great blunder, as the forest through which the army passed was set ablaze by the Moldavians, resulting in many casualties to the Ottoman host.
Oh, damn.
During this panic, the army was also showered with incoming fire from Moldavian handgunners and artillery from ahead. It was only when the Sultan arrived on the front lines and rallied his officers and janissaries that morale in the Ottoman army resurged. Now being overwhelmed by his opponent's numbers on all sides, Stefan withdrew his host from the battlefield in order to prepare for the siege of his capital. Although Mehmed had secured a victory at the Battle of Valea Alba, it had come at a heavy cost. Between 5 and 10,000 Ottomans had been killed or wounded during the course of the battle, compared to only around 1,000 Moldavians.
Could you use...
Due to these high losses, and plague now roaming the local countryside, the Sultan was unable to follow up on his victory over Stefan, who had fled to the Polish border to reassemble his strength. Unable to seize the primary fortresses of the region, such as Kilia, Akman and Suceava, Mehmed concluded his campaign by the end of the summer, but not before ravaging the entirety of Moldavia. Although now left in ruins, Stefan's realm managed to survive Mehmed's onslaught and maintain its independence. With Ottoman armies now gone from the local region, King Matthias ordered his vassal, Stefan Batory of Transylvania, to invade Wallachia alongside the Moldavians to restore Vlad to his throne. By the fall of 1476, Basarab III had lost his throne once again. However, in a demonstration of the volatility of Wallachian politics, he managed to regain power by the start of 1477 with Ottoman support. During this struggle, Vlad was cornered at the town of Snegov and was beheaded by Turkish agents. The head of the impaler
Rip to the goat.
prince was soon sent to Mehmed, where it was placed upon a high stake for all to see in the imperial capital. 15 years after his initial campaign of terror in the Balkans, Vlad III Dracula had finally been defeated and killed, representing a significant propaganda victory for Sultan Mehmed II. With Wallachia secured and Moldavia on the back
Bruh, what a G.
foot, Mehmed now turned his gaze to his wars elsewhere in the Balkans. In the next episode in our series on the Ottomans, we will look at the conclusion of the
Bruh, what a G, bro. What a G, bruh. Oh my gosh. Look, man, you made it all the way to the end of this video, man. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like my reactions. If you like what I have to say, go check out my other Turkish reaction, Ottoman history, Turkish history. Yo, speaking of which, I do have to continue that series. The Turkey series. It's just that I was doing so much Turkish reactions and like Turk reactions that it was kind of causing a big imbalance of my channel. You know, because I try to keep it balanced where I have like a versatile amount of audience. Because if you do too much of one content, you're going to attract only like one type of content, like audience, and they won't like watch your other stuff. So, but anyways, if you are a active viewer, bruh, you know, it's crazy. I see these people who are like, bro, when are you gonna do my reaction, bro? When are you gonna do my reaction, bruh? How can you not give me 99 cents a month for the channel membership, bruh? Literally, come on, we're all adults. I'm not even just saying this because like I want your money. No, this is there for both of our conveniences, guys. I'm a busy person, okay? And when I say busy, I don't mean like just sitting down playing games all day. I don't even play games. I literally like uninstalled all my games. Like I actually am a busy person, okay? I don't even hang out with people. Right? I'm super introverted as shit. I hate being around people, really and truly. This is why I love my YouTube channel, because I could just come on here and say whatever the hell I want. And I don't really have to deal with people being physically in front of me and having to deal with their nonsense. But anyways, but it's like, bruh, the membership is there. It's 99 cents. When you're a channel member, bruh, like your suggestions are done so much quicker. You get better insider information on what's going on. Like I said, I was talking to Effie a channel member the other day. Some of my channel members, when I'm not super busy, like I talk to my channel members on Discord all the time when I'm not busy. But it's like, bruh, like seriously, and they already know. They have like the deepest updates on what's going on with me. Okay, like if you have a question with me or anything, they could just come and ask me. I'll answer as soon as possible, etc., etc. But anyways, thank you for watching, and goodbye.